Live from our mom's basement. It's another episode of Looks Rare podcast. I'm Scaly Nelson, and we have, as usual, our fearless producer, Pep. We have Mr. Due Diligence, Punk Vandalay. We have the world's first NFT economist, Zinc, and we have, he always sells the top, Debussy. Also, number 40 NFT influencer in the whole wide world and galaxy. Welcome, guys.
Hey guys, how are you? It's been an interesting week, eh?
A lot going on, definitely.
Holy moly.
What
do you guys think about the whole market situation right now with everything going down?
Well, I think I know this is an NFT podcast, obviously, but I do think we should maybe spend a few minutes just talking about Ukraine with the caveat of, because I thought about this earlier, like obviously none of us are experts on this kind of thing, but at the same time, we're just like everybody else, right? We're interested in it. We have different opinions, I'm sure. We've listened to different things. And I feel like we can't just talk about everything in a vacuum this week. So I thought we could spend something a little unusual, but spend the first like 5 or 10 minutes just talking about maybe our opinions or thoughts about the whole Ukraine Russia situation.
Well, it's a disaster, that's for sure. Totally unexpected and came at the worst time. And innocent people are dying because of some idiots.
Yeah, I've heard. So for me, like I've been pretty, I live in Hawaii and I used to be caught up in more like world politics. And since I moved out here 11 years ago, I've honestly, it's like really helped my quality of life to not be involved with all that stuff. Cause especially with like the news and just all it is like misery. And, but the last couple of weeks, I've actually spent the time to sort of research the topic, and I've learned a lot, and I've definitely changed my views. Like my initial, I'm curious what you guys think, but my initial view was sort of what the mainstream news was feeding you was that it's 100% Russia's fault. Like Putin's just crazy. He's a maniac, and he's just trying to take over this country for no good reason other than that he just wants to like reunite the Soviet Union or be an aggressor. But then, I talked to some friends who know a lot about it, and I read other like news sources, and then I kind of learned, it's a little more complicated than that. There's some nuance to it. Like Russia's been really clear that for the last 8 or 9 or 10 years that they would never allow Ukraine to join NATO, and yet we've been kind of implicitly saying that they will join NATO. And they made it super clear that like that's a line that they're going to draw in the sand, and that if we ever, basically like we've kept poking the bear, like we kept saying that over and over and over again, and then certainly in the last couple of months it's been very obvious that this was going to happen. Like maybe not obvious, but like it's been in the news, right? Like people know about it, and we didn't make any effort to try to diffuse the situation. We were sort of like just acting like it was going to happen, and then we were going to fight back with sanctions. But it seems like another approach that I've heard we could have done was say, look, there's a 10-year moratorium on any NATO talk about Ukraine. Like, forget it. Like, Ukraine's not joining NATO. And then either that works, and if it didn't work, then obviously you could say, Putin's just an aggressor, and what else are you going to do? But we didn't even try that. And so I'm not saying it's our fault, by being in the United States, but like the West. I'm not saying it's our fault. I still think Russia's in the wrong, but it's just a little bit more complicated, and I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't do more to try to diffuse the situation.
Yeah, it does feel like Ukraine's kind of caught between bigger concerns. It feels like kind of part of a bigger fight. Like we've been seeing this, I think, the last 5 years, maybe even longer, where you have this kind of two kind of really opposing views about how the world should be run. And you have a lot of autocrats coming, and there's been a lot of autocrats even in Europe that have been gotten popularity, and like it was even surprising, like say like Hungary or a few other these Eastern European countries that have had much more kind of Trump light, I guess, type policies. And so you have this kind of like balance. We don't know, like a lot of places in Europe, we don't know if it's going to remain kind of this kind of classic liberal democracy, or if it's going to move towards populist kind of autocracies and things like this. And so like this battle has been happening, I think, much bigger and much in a kind of a wider space than just Ukraine. And I think just Ukraine has become this boiling point because, it's just obviously on the path for what Putin wanted. And, this idea of kind of unifying Russia is really important, I think, historically for him. And so it just seems like something he's just decided he's going to do regardless. So I agree with you that we should have done more to diffuse it, but that doesn't sound like there was a ton to take him off this path. And so, but we're still having this fight. Like, how do we have a fight when we have multiple big, non-democratic countries with nuclear weapons? How do we have like credibility to deal with these sorts of countries and their actions when we don't necessarily have the best track record ourselves? Like, especially in the Middle East, in terms of invading. Like, it's not like, I don't know,
Right.
too crazy, but it's not like, when people talk about Ukraine, we're watching these horrible scenes in like Kharkiv and in the east, and this has been happening in Syria for the last, almost 10 years. And, Iraq, many like Baghdad has been just kind of a war zone for like 20 years, right? And it's not like, we can go. So, this is not comparable, I don't think. But at the same time, like this sort of disasters happened many times over the last, multiple decades. So, like, it feels to me like we like to put ourselves in this kind of real black and white. We're in the right and everyone else is in the wrong. But obviously, you're right. The world's a lot more complicated.
Someone in the chat wants to know what Deb's fear level is on a scale of 1 to 10.
Taxes being at 10. Are you at taxes level, Deb?
Honestly, the only thing that worries me is taxes for like next year. That's what I'm a bit afraid of right now.
Nuclear war is an 8. Taxes are a 10.
Taxes.
Like,
Well, because why? I was talking to you guys about it yesterday about like people don't take into take into account like when you buy an NFT and your ETH average is, let's say, $2,000, right? And
wait. We don't want to talk about taxes, dude. We're trying to talk about Ukraine.
Okay, my fear level right now, I'd say like the whole war. I don't think we're going to like a nuclear war. Like I highly doubt that, but it's definitely bad that everything that's happening.
Yeah. And I mean, how do you prepare for a nuclear war? I mean, you can't.
You can't do anything.
I know.
Dig a hole.
Maybe you're probably safe, Scaly.
Honestly,
Hawaii's
a pretty good place.
Target. Yeah, I live in a capital city, so I'm probably in trouble.
Yeah, Scaly's probably got the longest warning, at least, like the longest advance warning if it goes off. Like, you'll have the most hours of time left, perhaps.
Plus, the zombies can't swim, so I'm good.
Right. So I watched a video from, there was like, what's that? There's that science show with all the animations. Starts with a K. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But they were like talking about what a nuclear bomb would actually, like what would happen if someone dropped a nuclear bomb over a city. And you're like, I think it was something like, the first 2-kilometer radius, everyone's vaporized. And I'm thinking I live about 500 meters from Parliament, so I'm probably, I probably won't get to see the aftermath.
Yeah, you get vaporized. Whatever. Your NFTs will live on forever in the cloud.
That's true. They're decentralized.
Ben, you've been quiet on this. So I want to hear your thoughts and yours as well, Pep.
Yeah, no, it's terrible what's going on. I'm not educated enough to form like specific opinion on it. I just, like most people, I hope it doesn't escalate and it gets to the point where it starts to get scary.
I had a question actually. It's for Scaly and Van. Only because some of my British friends seem to have real strong opinions on this, and I personally don't. But so I'm curious from the American perspective. Like, so one of my pretty close British friends is convinced that if Donald Trump was still in power, this wouldn't have happened. It's all Biden's fault. Biden is the weakness. But then I've heard other people arguing the opposite point that, geez, imagine if Trump was still in power, how much worse this could have been, how much more escalation there might have been by now. Thank God Biden's in control. And so I'm just curious what the American stance is, because I don't think that most British people really have much of a right to have an opinion on American politics. We think we do because it's like a TV show. American politics to us is a bit like a soap opera, whereas from you guys, you're living under this sort of rule and regime. So yeah, how do you feel? Like, is it Biden's fault, or are we fortunate that Biden's in control?
So my initial thought is that thank God Trump isn't president right now, because I would be so scared about how he would handle what's happening right now. But I am curious about how it would have gone if, like, I'm curious why Putin didn't invade when Trump was. It almost seems like he waited until Trump was gone to invade Ukraine, and I don't know if that was calculated, or I don't know if that had anything to do with it. To me, that's a little curious. And then this whole thing about, like, just to put it out there, I don't like Trump at all, but I also didn't quite understand this whole, like, he loves Putin thing. Like, I don't really know if that's true either. Like, that just seems like a media thing. Like, I don't know if he loves Putin, but certainly I don't think that they like had some agreement with each other. But the whole thing is curious. But to answer your question, I don't think it's political in that way. Like, I think Putin was going to do this for his own reasons. Perhaps the timing had something to do with it. And I think Biden, while he's 79 years old and maybe only half there, his administration, I think, is more stable. Like, I always felt like Trump was a wild card, and like, who the hell knows what he was going to do on like a bad day. So I am thankful that he's not in charge right now. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, loose cannon, unpredictable response. But maybe that's why, if there was any element of that to the timing, that'd be a good reason to delay it, just because at least the Biden response is probably more predictable, sort of more progressive, as in slowly onset, rather than some sharp action that you didn't expect that completely scuppers your plans. Or yeah, in general, though, I guess I feel similarly to you guys. I'm not smart enough or well informed enough to have real nuanced opinions. I just hope the whole thing blows over and markets go back to being green, so I can keep making money, I guess. Selfish.
Yeah. In terms of the markets, I think that's like the big, which it does feel kind of like the COVID response, where we have like this belief that something bad in the world happens that could escalate and get really bad, and so people panic sell and de-risk and these sorts of things in response. So we see this big correction, right? Like, I don't know, markets open up tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but like, obviously, like, all the things in terms of the prices of all the commodities that are involved in this have all skyrocketed in the last 2 days. And so just be curious though, what's going to happen to, like, it's not obvious to me that this is going to have huge impacts on like the Western economies though. Like, there's going to be like high prices in gas and other sorts of things, but we had that similar sort of thing happen.
So there's a few points on that though. Like, I saw a couple of people tweet it, and one person mentioned it in a podcast, that it said every time there's a recession, oil prices don't always spike, but every time oil prices spike over 150%, there's always a recession. And it almost seems inevitable based on what I heard today. It gets complicated, but basically, if we cut off Russian oil from the world economy, and the Iranian situation is still messed up. So basically, the other thing that could happen is, once oil prices go up to a certain point, the United States can actually do an embargo where we stop exporting oil to kind of protect our own economy and lower prices in the United States. And if that happens, which is very possible, then oil prices could go through the fucking roof. And then I don't see how that doesn't cause. I mean, pretty much every economist would argue that that's going to cause a recession, a global recession. But what's kind of weird in my mind is that it wouldn't be led, like 2008 was led by the United States and all the fuckery that the Wall Street people did. But this would be a totally different kind of thing. It wouldn't be led by the United States, but it would be led, I guess, by the energy markets crashing or just getting, you know, oil going through the roof. Plus it's already a ton of inflation. It just doesn't look good, you know.
Yeah, I know it's obviously not good, but it's just curious. Like our economy is a very different economy than it was even 10 years ago in terms of the energy situation, right? And so even in the United States, where there's a lot more domestic supply, a lot more, and then the oil market itself is a lot very fungible, right? Like Russia's already setting up deals with China, and so like it's not to what extent that just because the West doesn't buy specific, like you're going to see Europe not shut off, but like maybe UK and US shut off oil imports. Like these are very small percentage of total oil consumption in those countries. So I don't know. It's like I think you're right. Like there's tons of uncertainty, and like
What about
obviously we don't want to go into a recession, but I don't know.
what about
I'm
our
just curious.
precious?
I think it's gonna be interesting.
What about our precious JPEGs? How are they going to be affected by this?
I don't know. Maybe like I just feel like COVID was such a big shock, and we have such a service economy that can live online, very digital service economy that can live online. Like I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. The JPEGs are luxury items too, right? So it really depends on which parts of the world are and which parts of the population are affected, right? Just another kind of inconvenient truth, I guess too, right? But it might not matter so much.
What do you think about? I mean, it seems to me like I could see a scenario where Bitcoin does well because if inflation like goes through the roof with oil going up, and you're looking at specifically looking at like the United States economy and I guess by proxy Canada and a few other countries, not looking at the globe. I mean, unfortunately, the sad tragedy of all this is the poorer countries are going to do really badly if this all kind of plays out the way people are saying. But just talking about JPEGs, those countries aren't buying JPEGs right now. So like you said, it's a luxury item. And I'm wondering if there's an argument that, people are still going to be looking for yield, right? And if there's inflation and the stock market's crap, maybe we finally get that decoupling that everyone has hoped would happen that never has happened, where crypto does decouple and kind of becomes like a gold. And if Bitcoin does well, it's not a stretch to say Ethereum and will do well. And then when Ethereum does well, JPEGs do well. So I don't think it's like crazy to think that could happen, although it doesn't necessarily. I don't know. How likely do you think that is?
Yeah, it's there's just, I feel like crypto markets are just so small that if there's lots of moving parts, it just depends on which pieces are going to become dominant, right? So like you can definitely see, like if there's a recession, everyone just has less money, and so it's a wealth effect, and they just pull back on trying to like just conserve what they have, and that could be really bad for crypto. But then you can also have like all the uncertainty especially in terms of the willingness of governments in the face of this crisis is to suspend people's to limit people's financial activities. That could just be a demand for cryptos, and then that could outweigh any sort of other sort of macro type influence, right? So it's one of these things. I think it's just a real big dice throw in terms of which effects end up dominating here. Anyone who knows, I think, is just kind of kidding themselves.
Pep just pulled up the Ethereum chart, and it actually doesn't look as bad as you would think. I mean, it's kind of surprising that it's rebounded. I forgot how low it went on February 24th.
Mm-hmm.
It got down to 2,200 something. So I mean, I don't know. I would have thought if a month ago you told me all this crap was happening, I would be like, oh, Ethereum's at $1,000.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so I mean, like I think there's just a lot of things going on, and it's just almost impossible because you don't know which things are going to just end up. There's just a lot of people in the world, and not very many people, not a high percentage of those people using crypto, right? So you don't need a lot of extra people coming in for whatever reasons to affect things, right? And then there's a lot of talk about how much money's in stables right now. It's tons, right? So
Yeah, all the dry powder on the sidelines. I think we should move on. Does anyone else have anything else they want to say about this topic?
I was like, be smart with your stables and don't go all in at once. Like, was I wait for proper capitulation or just like maximum fear? Because I still don't believe we've reached rock bottom yet.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of room to go lower.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, let's talk about NFT stuff. We'll move on. And
Sure.
I did want to talk about actually, I thought this project was really fascinating. The Kevin Rose proof.xyz. For people who don't know, I'm sure most of our listeners know who Kevin Rose is, but he's got like a bazillion followers. He's been in the crypto space from the beginning, basically, in NFT. He claimed crypto. He claimed CryptoPunks and then went away from NFTs and then got back into them right around when Art Blocks was launching. But anyway, he set up a private Discord with 1,000 people, and you have to have the proof NFT to get access, which went Dutch auction all the way down to fucking 0.75 ETH. I had my finger on the mouse. It was a Saturday morning. I don't know why I didn't mint it. I'm an idiot. Now that same NFT is worth 37 ETH with volume. It's actually trading at 37 ETH. So anyway, there's that. But what they get is, so there's 1,000 people in there, presumably 1,000. I mean, you could have more than one NFT, so maybe there's like 800 people in there. And they did this project where they had 20, it's called Grails, the Grails project. And they commissioned 20 artists secretly. So nobody knew, supposedly, who these artists were. And they were told, I heard him talk about it on his podcast. And he said, they told them, make art, but don't necessarily make it in your usual style because you don't really want people to like immediately know who it is. And so then they released all of these NFTs, 20 of them, and all these people holding the token, so the 800 or so, however many it is, went on the site and they had the luxury to mint one. They could pick one and it was free because they held the NFT. And then after they all minted theirs, they released, I think they just released today or maybe it was yesterday, the list of artists. And it's interesting because the total number in the editions, they're all the same, right? So like if there's 80, then everyone who has those, they're all the same. They're not like unique, but there's varying numbers. Like I think the rarest is like 20 and the most common might be 150 or 200 or something like that. And it's solely based on who wanted to mint what. And they kind of said, look, mint what you like. Don't try to guess who it is. But of course, we're all degens. We're all going to guess. And so if you thought one was an X copy, you were going to mint it, right? Or if you thought one was some other artist that sells for a ton of money. And so they released the list, and it was a fun list. It was like Tyler Hobbs and I'm blanking on his name, the Rings guy, Dimitri, and Hackatow, and I forget how to say it, Lucrece. And then I think the most controversial one or the most interesting one was the Protoglyph by Larva Labs. And I didn't have enough time. I forgot to research it more before the pod, but read what that says on there. It says the Protoglyph is this output from an early algorithm exploration for the autoglyphs. Yeah, that's what I thought. So basically, it's kind of weird. So for those who don't know, Larva Labs, who did CryptoPunks, their second project was Autoglyphs, which was the first on-chain generative art project, and it's ASCII art, and so it's all done on chain. It's pretty like low res. And Autoglyphs, there's what 256, I think, or 512, I forget how many. And they trade at like 150, 200 ETH, and they're total grails. So this is a prototype. So I guess this is one of the prototypes they got from when they were developing this. But what's kind of weird is it's not an on-chain generative piece that they did now. Like you're not minting it now, I don't think. And then they're all the same. And so everyone who got one is the exact same, whereas autoglyphs are all different. And they're trading at like 80 ETH once it came out that they were. I don't know if anyone guessed before, because I would have never guessed Larva Labs would be included in this. That's very unusual. They've never done anything like this. But I think that's the most expensive one that's trading. Yeah, the floor is at like 74, but I know one at least sold for 80. And I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. There's also a Tyler Hobbs one, which is like a brick wall, but because it's Tyler Hobbs, it's selling for a lot.
Yeah, I read his description of the brick wall thing. It actually is pretty cool. So at first you're like, you kind of what is this? But it is like a photo of a brick wall basically, but not. It's what's the chloroform? I don't know. It's very cool. I would read the description that he posted up about it in terms of what went into developing for the Grail though, the autoglyph or the protoglyph one. I don't quite get it. Like one, also it doesn't really look like an autoglyph, right? So like,
Yeah,
I don't really get it.
Matt Pence actually gave a little bit of a background in it in the autoglyphs Discord. So he said it was an early generative experiment prior to making autoglyphs. So they liked the way it turned out, but the math formula to generate it was too complicated to encode in Solidity, and the image was too big. So they ended up scrapping it.
Yeah. So then, is this on chain?
I don't think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like people can collect what they want to collect, but it's the whole thing though is kind of interesting. The Grail's concept of collecting a bunch of artists randomly and then getting people that own your token. I wonder what like the end game for this, right? Like I understand that these guys, it's hard to bet against Kevin in terms of being able to deliver, right? But like there's this expectation, I think, with a lot of these types of tokens that you're just going to get a perpetual amount of free stuff, right? That you're just going to be able to then, either dump onto the market to someone else, or, like that's what the price of the token is coming from. Some like future expectation for all the free stuff you're going to get. But then, I don't understand the economics of the people who are giving the free stuff to the token holders. Like there's a lot of work, I think, to put this together. And I don't know, like maybe the first time it's worth doing to get some marketing or something like that and deliver to your community, right? But like it's not like their original mint, they made a ton, and I know they have volume on secondary, but
do they get a secondary? Do they get a royalty on secondary?
They must. But like the point though is like it's still a lot of work. And then like they could, if they can bring together these 20 artists and do this sort of thing and sell them for the prices that they're going at, right? That's a lot of money left off the table they've just given to their holders, which I think is part of that's obviously part of the game. But like, how long can you do this for? Like, is the next run they're going to be able to find, like, eventually they're going to have to start getting paid again, right? So like, I don't know, maybe the thing is now that they had success on this one, they can launch another B2, a $10,000 mint Discord channel entry, and then hopefully people buy into that. Like that's kind of what the VFriends did, right? Like they have a big secondary. They have a big season 2. It's like 50,000 or something, right?
Yeah, I think it's 55,000. Yeah.
So like,
I think
that's obviously the end game.
I think it's pretty cool though. Like I don't have a problem with it. I think I feel like he probably is giving a lot of it back to the community as far as developing stuff. And but yeah, the royalty thing is interesting because that could end up being like way more than he ever anticipated. Like I can't imagine that Kevin Rose imagined that the floor price today would be 37 ETH with a decent amount of volume, which, when you're calculating what you might make on royalties, all of a sudden that jumps it way up. But
no, I like VFriends has made 8 figures in royalties, I think. If you
crazy.
Look at, like,
so
they've done like 60, they've done like 60,000 ETH in volume or something crazy like that, right? And they're getting, I did the calculation before, but they're getting like at least 5%, right? So maybe even more. And so like they're crushing it, right? Like I don't think anyone thought, like their secondary royalties on these things are like massively outpacing their initial sales. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think like I think obviously it's a great concept. It's worked really well, and I think it's going to buy some a lot of credibility for the next launch, right? Like people are going to want, if he has a second season, people are going to want to get in on it, and they'll pay a lot more than I think that they paid for first season.
For sure. Do you? So I imagine there's one-hit wonders with artists, right? I mean, I've never really thought about that. Like obviously with musicians, there's tons of one-hit wonders. And I'm not trying to be mean, but like what if what if Tyler Hobbs is a one-hit wonder? Like his work was so perfect for art blocks at that time when it came out. It was like completely magical and like made perfect sense, and the outputs were so varied yet similar, yet aesthetically pleasing. But how do you like how do you do another project that even comes close to that one? Like there's so much pressure.
Definitely. Yeah. And yeah, Fidenza was just, it was almost the perfect art block project, right? Every mint looked amazing. You can tell it was one, part of one cohesive project. So it is definitely a tough act to follow. Yeah, I don't know if there's probably not a lot of artists out there that could follow something. And I think on a podcast he mentioned he had worked on that for a really long time, and yeah, years, right? And any subsequent project, he's rolling these out much quicker. So there's definitely that factor. There's not as much time spent on these subsequent projects.
Pep, what's the incomplete control volume and floor price? I haven't looked at that in a long time, but I personally was not a big fan of that, of just the aesthetics of it. Damn, the floor price is 120, but I don't know if there's much volume.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no volume.
There's only 100 of them too.
So
no
one's selling them.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Last one's sold for 62s.
Interesting. I mean, I guess people just want to have them, but
was that even
there was one reveal? Yeah, there was one 9 days ago, and the others I think were around that reveal time, probably the two months maybe, or maybe those were 3 months.
I think it's tough, right? Because like obviously I think his work is really good. It's just it's so hard to compare to Fidenza, and then you just like have this collector base, I think, that tends to be quite loud and over, I think maybe, I don't know what the right word is, but tries to over, there's NFTs in general are just hype in general, right? So you have this collector base that kind of hypes everything to do with it, that sometimes it kind of like there's a disconnect, right, from the outside looking in. Like I'm not playing in this market. Like these things are all sold, like even the incomplete controls I think sold in the 30s, right? Like when you get the mints. And so
yeah, it sold for a lot. Hey, Deb, I'm curious of your thoughts. You've been kind of quiet over there. What are your thoughts on incomplete control?
To be honest, because I'm looking at it on the screen on my on Pep's screen, and they actually look pretty good from far away. But I find like when you click on them, they don't look that great. It's like I would I would never pay 120 ETH for this. Probably pay like 5 or 3.
No, I hear you.
Yeah. No shade intended, but they're looking incomplete.
Yeah, it really does.
I know, it doesn't do it for me. I don't know.
Like something's missing. It looks like there's something there, but it's just maybe that is the art. That it's supposed to look that way.
Well, I think part of it is that you're supposed to look at it in terms of like bring them together and almost like tile them. So I've seen people put together like 9 or larger sets, and they can look pretty
perfect
good
like this right now. It looks like stunning.
Yeah, like the tiling aspect.
It looks great when they're all together like this.
Yeah.
But I guess it goes back to, right, like with the general in pricing of NFTs, right? Like I think this is like still a much higher quality project than what you typically find even on the Artblocks Pro platform, or like so. But at the same time, the price just seems so out of whack, right? And I would not understand why you would choose one of these over a Fidenza unless you're already playing with this unlimited ETH anyways. But I do think like sometimes the hype machine gets too quick on these things, just like oh, it has to be good, and like there was just no world in which this gets revealed and everyone doesn't love it, right? Like that was just everything was built up for that. It didn't seem very genuine.
It's also a very small release number, right? So it's kind of, and the people who got in on it were, big time
Connected.
collectors. So yeah, it's not really. There's 100 items and 63 owners. Click on the owners
I
list.
think
Let's just look at some of the names.
yeah, it's all the
These
same.
were
It's all the
yeah, these were all minted in
visuals.
person as well. So there was a whole experience around it. You had to go to New York and mint these in person.
Right. Unless you got it on secondary, but that was only one or two.
Exactly.
So all right. Well, I think that I think it was a
Want to
great
be
discussion.
we're not the anti Tyler Hop squad. I
No,
have a
not at
cadenza
all.
on my
No.
I
I
have
got
a
mine.
cadenza on my wall.
I got mine framed, and I showed you guys a picture. It's amazing. It looks so nice. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't in any way mean to fade Tyler. He's one of the most important NFT artists there is. But I mean, we're allowed to criticize stuff too, right? Like we don't have to just constantly be positive. So the next topic I wanted to talk about, honestly, part of it's just because I want to pick your guys' brain, is about metaverse land. So I look at the four, Decentraland, which has a coin, Mana, which I think was the first, and then of course Sandbox, which has the sand token, and then Somnian, which has the cubes token, and then Crypto Voxels, which doesn't have a token. And I'm pretty sure Decentraland was first, and then Crypto Voxels was close after. Maybe I have that mixed up, but I know they've been around forever, longer than I've been doing NFTs. And then I believe Somnium was the next one, and then Sand is a little more recent, but they've all been around for a while. And I personally own one medium-sized Somnium plot and one CryptoVoxel spot, which I bought a while ago to just kind of play around on. I bought some Sand token. I didn't buy land only because it was super confusing. Like they had these land sales every week or every so often with auctions, but you have to have Sand to buy them, and then the UI was all wacky, and like it wasn't easy to figure out how to buy it, and like every time I would click on one, it was like already bought. It was super frustrating. So I never bought one on secondary, and then I've never really played around in Decentraland. But I'm kind of curious. I'd be curious to hear your guys' like pros and cons on which ones you would buy. Interestingly, the price for the plots of land on Sandbox, I think the floor is around 4 ETH. On CryptoVoxels, depending on the location, it's like 2 to 4 ETH, and on Somnium, medium sized parcels like 4 ETH. So like they're somewhat comparable. I don't remember about Decentraland. Oh, and then the one other thing I wanted to bring up was the cap. So Somnium is capped at 5,000, I believe, and then Sand is capped at like 164,000. And I think CryptoVoxels might have just announced that they're finally going to cap it. And then Decentraland, I can't recall if it has a cap.
I think they have like 60,000 in Generous City, something high. In terms of like number of plots, like
But can they make any more, or is that capped?
well, I think it's just their Genesis City. I imagine that the idea, I have no idea. I don't think I've never read anything otherwise, but I think the idea is that obviously they could make another city if they wanted to.
Got it. And do any of you guys own land? I know Plum owns some Sandbox land, but he's not here.
I used to own Somnium Space. Oh wow, 0.5. Holy moly. Yes, I got one for 7 ETH back in, I think it was last June. And I ended up selling it for a loss for like 3 ETH for like some tax loss harvesting. But it wasn't because of that. It was just because I spoke to someone who's actually deeply involved in Somnium Space, and he was just like telling me how he became less and less bullish on it because it was just too he wasn't seeing the traction, and I'm not sure if he's right or wrong because I haven't kept up with it. So that's the reason why I sold. But otherwise, it was really cool. Like I met a lot of cool people in their Discord, and they're really nice. Some cool developers as well. And that's about it. And the other land parcel I own is from Avagachi. I own like I think it's one of the first land sales. And that's about it, man.
Yeah, Somnium is 3.15 for a plot. But yeah, they're all pretty comparable. I think Sandbox is falling back down to like 2.88, and then Decentraland is, I think, kind of the one that's held up the best. Because I've been looking at Decentraland for a while now and I put offers in, trying to get something. Because it does seem like to be the one that companies, and like if you were to like pitch to corporate America, this is where they go set up shop, right? But then I played the Sandbox Alpha, and it actually is a decent game.
Yeah, I'm kind of bullish on Sandbox. I heard
way better than I
they're
thought.
if I had to pick one, I would pick Sandbox. And so I was
might
thinking
get another
about
plot.
I think I might get some land. So if okay, let's say I don't know anything about it because I really don't know much about Sandbox. What would you recommend? Like what should I do to figure out
I
what's
have no idea.
valuable?
I have no idea. Like I don't understand the I played around in like the little alpha setting. There's portals, and I think you can run around, but obviously you'll be able to jump into any plot anywhere. So like there's maybe an idea that you get a spot nearby, but I don't know if that like if this like portal system is going to be like a road network, and so that will matter what you're close to. I don't know. Like personally, like I bought a Sandbox plot back when it was like I think I bought it for 0.19, like way back in the day, just because I wanted to have a piece of it.
Oh, gee.
And well, I feel like pretty dumb because I didn't buy more. I'm not like Plum though. Like he bought like a full estate, right?
Yeah, near Kong's, right? Or near
But yeah,
Board 8,
like
maybe. Yeah.
I don't know what the I've been trying to think through this a lot like lately, and I don't really understand pricing. Like I was looking at the Decentraland, and like it seems like you'd want to have a place on a road. Maybe it seems kind of more like it has more space that you're not like squished in with everything else. But then it's almost impossible to walk around in that game. Like it's almost unplayable.
Well, then, so what do you think about? There's two theories. There's one theory that it's like real estate and location, right? That's rule number one in real estate. But then there's another theory that who the hell cares? It's metaverse. You just click a button and you can go wherever you want. So why do you need to be like in a cool neighborhood?
Yeah, and essentially, I think there's still going to be that because like people just like being next to stuff that's cool. But my biggest worry with the whole thing is that it's just what percentage of this is just people sitting on stuff, never going to build anything. Like you go into Decentraland, there's no builds. There's some people have made some stuff, but it's pretty much empty land, right? Because people are just parking, right? And they're just this is
Voxels
like
is
most
less. Voxels is less like that.
Yeah, it's because it's all OGs. They all were buying this when ETH was $100.
Yeah, well, I wasn't, but I bought one. I got it a while. I think I got it a year ago. It was still pretty expensive, but I'm up on it a little bit. But I played around with it because I wanted to build, but I found it cumbersome to build on it, and it was kind of fun, but like it wasn't fun enough for me to keep working on it, and so I kind of gave up. But there's people like I have a friend who is like an expert builder, Point Shark, and I kept telling him I would pay him. He said he would do it for free, but whatever. I could pay him like a small amount, and he would build like some badass thing for me, which I think eventually I'll do. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, I feel like with Sandbox, it probably won't matter. Like you just jump in, and it's going to be. I think with Sandboxes, they're like playing this. It's going to be your own little plot. With Decentraland, it probably might matter, but I think it's just I don't really understand the point. It's weird. On one hand, I think Decentraland is probably the best bet in terms of getting like kind of mainstream adoption, but it's also I think the least.
I don't know. I kind of think Sandbox is. I don't know.
But I mean, like in terms of like convincing, like if you're a big company, people that this is the one they go and buy. It seems like when they have these announcements, like some bank goes and like tries to have a metaverse. Okay, the way I would say it was this: Decentraland is kind of like what I expect, like a 55-year-old to think the metaverse should be, right? So if you're making decisions at corporation XYZ whatever, then it will make more sense than going to some Minecraft game or some some like even weirder experience. It's not It's not
It's the boomer. It's
a
the boomer
grid.
land. You're saying.
It's like, you know, when you watch Ready Player One, they're like, oh, you jump into the metaverse and it's like a real town. Like, you know, every 90s conception of the metaverse is, you know, I've always said this a million times, but it's like they're flying cars, right, of the 1950s. It's like, oh, the future is going to have flying cars.
Right.
And like, obviously the future is not flying cars. Like, it's just, why would we even want flying cars?
So with Sandbox,
You know,
do you buy are all the plots the same size? I wasn't quite sure about that.
yeah, like I think there's you can join them. So but yeah, every plot is like this one little square. But you
Like
can
if you're looking for sale, like if you're looking on OpenSea, unless it says it's a bundle, they're all the same size? Is that true?
yeah, you can see it. There's a little orange dot that says what on the picture that says what land you're buying. So you can see, like, sometimes people have a bigger estate and they are selling a little thing. I don't know if there's any more land sales, but they
I
were
think there was
selling
one. Yeah,
they
there
were
was one not
selling 9
long
by
ago.
yeah, they were selling 3x3s and larger estates like together on those land sales, but you can still sell the individual plot. Like each NFT is one plot.
I see. So it's different than Somnium, because Somnium has small, medium, large, and extra
Yeah.
large, and so
Yeah.
these are all the same size, but you can lump them together and have like a 4x4 or 6x6 or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's I kind of wanted to look at the OpenSea stats and kind of run down the top 10. But while we're pulling that up, I did want to give a shout out, a super sad shout out to Alotta Money, and maybe just spend a couple of minutes talking about him. He passed away this week from cancer, and super sad, obviously. And I know he was one of the first artists I ever. I didn't have any relationship with him personally, but I just remember, like, one of the first times I looked at crypto art, I saw one of his pieces. Like, he's been around forever.
Yeah, it was crazy news. I had no idea that he was sick.
Same.
Yeah, like, I think we all kind of really appreciated his work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
For a long, long
shocking.
time.
Yeah, he's
It's
one
weird
of the.
how you. Sorry, go ahead, Van.
Yeah, one of the OGs, and yeah, when I started in the space too, yeah, I always wanted to collect his work. Just he has such a unique style, right? When you see it, you know who the artist is right away, which is rare in this space.
Right, he had that unique style, and tons of respect from all the OG artists, and yeah, it's just super sad. Like, it's funny how you, like, I know a lot of people you might message or whatever. I haven't even ever messaged them, but like, just because I knew, like it almost feels like you lost a friend, and because this community is really close in that way.
Yeah, it's weird with Twitter, right? Like, because everything is kind of public and you're just saying things publicly, and so even if you don't DM someone, you kind of feel part of that community and feel, you know, connect with them. Because yeah, so it is very bizarre it's a weird loss to experience. I feel
Community
bad
is
for
very small when you think about it. Eh? Like, everyone knows each other, even if you don't talk to them directly. You kind of know people after a while, just by their screen names or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
I
oddly
still
small.
feel like
Yeah.
I still feel like an outsider because I did come in a little later than a lot of like you guys, and it is kind of weird when people are like, oh, I know who you are, kind of thing. Like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I guess I tweet a lot, but it is still kind of a strange feeling to like, you know, how small that community is, and then you're in DMs with people and you're like, oh, people, you know, I was kind of weird thing. But
do you think we look back in like 5 years, 10 years as like this was the golden era when it was tiny and you really could reach out to anyone, and if you want to DM someone, they'll probably respond, even if it is Kevin Rose or Gary Vee or someone that's already got a high profile. And in 5 years' time, maybe that just won't be the case, because the biggest artists will have transcended and be almost untouchable. This is interesting.
It is.
it'll be, I think it'll be weird. It will be weird because I think a lot of also the big names in the space 5 years from now are going to be people we've never heard of before, and so like you won't be able to DM them because they're going to have no idea who you are, right? Even if you've been around. So I think there's going to be a weirdness about that too, where you're going to feel cut out from people that showed up 3 years after you.
Yeah, I mean that happened to me on a personal level with the Punks Discord. I mean that was like I don't even know what I would like equate it to now, but it was a very small niche community. There's times you go in there and there'd be one message for a whole day, or sometimes no messages, and it was like my go-to every day when I would wake up. And then I'll like kind of overnight. I'm not complaining because Punks did really well, but kind of overnight it was like overrun by all these new people and new energy and. Like looking back on it, that's like when Crypto Dick Butts was formed and like all these other things were happening that I felt like a total outsider all of a sudden. And but that's just part of when the space grows. So to answer your question, I think definitely we'll look back in 5 years and say, oh, yeah, those were the good old days, like when you kind of actually felt like you knew people on a personal level. And but that's fine. I mean, that's just how it is, right? It's still really small.
Yeah, it's still tiny. I think that people, like, we're going to be looking at some OpenSea stats soon, I guess, but like people still really underestimate how small this space is, given this kind of scope for the potential for the technology. It just
Pep,
seems there's a huge disconnect.
What's the rundown on the Dune analytics for the past couple of months? I think you had said earlier that the volumes were down to how they were a few months ago. While you're waiting, are there any projects that you guys are looking forward to in the next couple of weeks that are minting?
I haven't heard of anything.
There was a project that was really interesting. I wanted to cover real quickly, but I know some of us made some bids on it. But there's a project from an artist named I don't know how to pronounce his name. Shl0ms, yeah. But he did a project where he blew up a Lambo, and then he's gonna make NFTs of pieces of the Lambo. So he made you can bid on the pieces. You don't know which piece you're gonna get, but there's 888 of them. So and the auction was where if the first 50 or the top 50 bids, if they when the time ran out for the auction, if the rankings changed at all, it would add an extra 10 minutes. So I think Zinc was also bidding along with me, but yeah, it just kept dragging on because people started bidding it up. There was some activity trying to get the top spot. Ultimately, 69 ETH got the top bid, and he generated close to 800 ETH total. It's crazy. He spent 300K on the Lambo itself that he blew up, but he more than made up for that.
Wow. So do you get the physical piece sent to you? Is that how it works, or is it just a picture?
It's an NFT of it. I don't think you get the actual physical piece. That would be pretty cool as well. But he did something similar with this first project, which was like a toilet that he just smashed, and then there's like pieces of it. I think Deb, you told me you mentioned him in the past.
Yeah, he was pretty. The reason why I mentioned him, I think he had a. Oh my god, I forgot what it was. Man,
he had some DMs.
He had a really cool project.
Yeah, and he posted some DMs he had with Kanye, which got some hype.
Yeah.
But he's a very interesting artist. I like the fact that he's doing something different from every other artist, and the way he, the video for it was so hype as well. I think it was very well done, and it got me excited to try to get a piece of this. So luckily I ended up getting some.
Did you get
So
one
this is like
zinc?
a real. No, I went to bed and I think I bid 0.2 at the end or something, and I think the floor was like 0.4 almost, right? So
Yeah, it was
I missed.
close to 0.36 that I ended up at.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh
it
well.
dragged on way too long, to be honest. At that point, I was like pot committed. I wanted to make sure I got one. So
I feel like
I kept paying attention, but
this is another one of those things where I feel like, when people are like, "Oh, what's the point of NFTs?" or like these sorts of things, and I don't know, like I just this kind of experience, I don't think is something that you're gonna see or hear a lot from. Like, what other auction have you ever heard of that's gonna get like, well, these guys got millions of dollars? What was the total ended up? It was like must have been
800
over
ETH
like,
almost.
yeah, right. So like, we're almost talking like, over $2 million, right? So like you have um you have like that sort of bidding and stuff like that, and it's like everyone watching on their computer and everyone's getting excited about it, and there's just kind of silliness on Twitter about it. I don't know, I just feel like like it's one of those things again where NFTs don't necessarily, you don't need NFTs in order to do that, but it's just something I just don't see existing really without NFTs. It's just the number of barriers and social interaction that
Yeah.
NFTs encourage to just completely, it's just funny when you hear these arguments about like, okay, well, specifically, you don't need NFTs for any of this stuff, right? But then you're like, well, then why didn't any of this stuff exist before
Yeah, you kind
NFTs?
of do though. Yeah, and I kind of hate that
Yeah,
argument. Like they say, oh, you don't ever need a coin. You don't need it to be decentralized, or it's not. The argument's either you don't need it to be decentralized, or it's not decentralized. But it's not. It's not a binary thing. Like it's okay to
yeah,
have it sort of centralized and sort of not centralized. Like the bottom line is, if you have your wallet and you can take custody of it, and it's on a decentralized blockchain, and then you can say, oh, well, Infura has all the nodes and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, whatever. It's close enough. Like, we don't have to be such purists about it. And you're right. If it was so great, if none of this is necessary, then why is this so innovative? Like, this is
yeah,
cool.
Mhm.
This is great. And
Yeah,
there's so
yeah.
much other stuff like this that is cool. And it's only because of, does it have to be on the blockchain? I don't know if it has to be, but it is, and it works, and it didn't happen before the blockchain existed. So yeah.
yeah. That's like, it's just, I'm sure you could find examples, but it's just, there's nothing, it doesn't feel like there's anything like this, like
Mhm.
um, in terms of what people are producing and the experimentation they have. I think it's just like people feel like they can experiment with this stuff because they don't need to rely on getting a number of other people on board. Like this guy can just go buy a Lambo, blow it up, and fractionalize it, and he can just be confident that, like if he gets enough, if he wants to do it, it'd be very hard to pull this off. I feel like as an artist, um, beforehand, right? And
Mhm.
like, you'd have to make sure that a gallery was in line or something. You have to make sure that people are going to pay attention. How would you advertise this, right? Like without the communities already built, and
Yeah, you'd have
so
to
like,
hire a gallery and you'd have to pay PR
yeah,
people
no
and you'd
one's
have to do all kinds of stuff.
exactly right. And like, I'm sure people do performance art too, but then like, do these guys even make that much money?
That's a
So
cool
I
project.
think we're
Yeah.
going to see more of that stuff. Yeah,
Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing
no,
that,
this
Van.
is it was very exciting. When the clock finally went down to zero, yeah, I was pumped. So yeah, I think
Nice.
it was an event in itself.
So Pep, pull up the OpenSea rankings, and just on OpenSea, I want to see. Well, yeah, we can look at the data analytics, but yeah, the data analytics just show that the volume for NFTs has gone down, kind of back to where it was. Gosh, it's kind of ugly.
It's kind of
Uh,
interesting. ETH volume is back to where it was kind of early December when everything was just waking up again. Whereas if you look at like USD volumes, we're kind of still well above that, or like autumn winter level. And also transaction volume is like pretty high. Where were we? Like daily trade count, so like trade volume is higher, which I guess means that logically average transaction like value is down, if that makes sense. Up in
yeah,
up in dollars,
I think
down in
that's true.
ETH.
Yeah,
yeah, makes
I
sense.
think my favorite numbers though are, the the active traders.
Okay, yeah. That was on this
Right.
page as well.
So we have like 500,000 in January and February each, and it's like I just think sometimes people just need a if you were to look at like March 2021 active traders in OpenSea, 31,000 people. Right, we already have on March 6th
Wow.
almost 200,000 people trading. Right, like it's just like and then
Wow.
like that's probably going to go up. Like if you look at February to February, 48,000 too. That was like February was like the
It's
first
crazy.
kind of hit of like, oh, NFTs are real kind of thing, right? Like post that's right when punk started really pushing, and it was post Top Shot. And
Yeah.
or no, sorry, yeah, February into March, right? And then like, February 2021, you had 16,000 people trading on OpenSea, right? And now we have 530,000 last February. That's a one year-on-year growth. That's insane, right? Like I just it's really hard for me to like look at things and like, okay, this is a negative sign because it's still small, but it's like it's clearly become the thing. Like this is clearly how people interact with digital assets now.
I think it
couldn't
was
imagine
February.
starting.
I was gonna say, I think it was February 19th was the day that like 98% of all Top Shot all-time high sales happened. Like you look back and you click on any like good Top Shot and it's like all-time high, February 19th.
It's a Friday for Top Shot.
All right, let's look at the OpenSea rankings, Pep, for the NFT like top. Yeah, there we go. So we have Cyber Brokers is number 1 in volume. The floors dipped a little bit to 1.6, but it was a 0.35 mint, and we pumped it pretty hard our last pod because we were excited about it. Maybe a good time to note that we don't get paid by anyone. We don't do any paid shills. This is just us talking about our NFTs. We do pump our own bags, though, of course, because we own a lot of these things. But
And fund them too.
And fund them. I don't think anyone has any. No one here has invisible friends, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
we saw them really early. They look
yeah,
nice,
we knew about them, but
it was one of
well,
those
it had this
whitelist
annoying
or bust,
whitelist
right?
thing.
Yeah.
Whitelist or bust, exactly. But it had it's done pretty well. I mean, even like the floor 7.77, which isn't bad. I mean, I've actually surprised it's held up so well. I know pre-reveal it was what how high did it get pre-reveal? More than that,
almost 9, right?
I think so, but I mean that's not bad. And
Actually,
I don't think
this,
it's a bad I don't think it's a bad project, but it's just kind of in that zone of like I don't know what's gonna happen to it.
the floors aren't as bad as I would have thought. I hadn't really checked the last couple of days, and
No, you're right. It's done well. Yeah, I would have thought it'd be
well,
like
the floors
4.
for almost all, for the floors for almost all these projects. I don't know who Dippy's is. I saw it. It's in, I guess it was a recent mint.
Yeah, and Azuki's has held up 10, pretty much solid.
Azuki's held up. 3 lenders has held up.
Bored Apes honestly has done kind of poorly for Bored Apes. The floor's down to 73.5, and there's been some sales, some paper-handed sales. And interestingly, the Punk's floor I think is like 68. So that differential between the Punk's floor and the Apes floor that people talked about so much a while back has definitely shrunk, which is kind of interesting. Any ideas why the Apes floor, like relatively speaking, it's doing kind of poorly? I don't know if it has anything to do with the token and FUD about the token, or who knows? I'm not sure.
The volume's down, like, so maybe there's just a lot of people trading, and once liquidity dried up with all the people that were sustaining the floor. I don't know. I haven't really seen whether people are like cutting their lists and stuff like that, but if anytime like volume dries up and there's a lot of people wanting to trade something, you're going to see the floor crash, right?
Yeah.
Anything you guys are most bullish on that list?
I'm bullish on Cyber Brokers right now. They look pretty awesome.
Yeah, I won't lie.
Azuki as well.
I am too.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Out of this list,
And I you know, I just got the feeling that Azuki is gonna be like this cycle. It's gonna do really well. Like if there's a bull market return, it's the fact that they're holding up so well. I have a feeling they're gonna do pretty well this upcoming bull market if we get
And
one.
the floors, what's the floor? Go back up. It's like 1 point.
10.
No, oh,
And
sorry,
yeah,
not
Azuki
Azuki's cyber brokers. It's
Oh,
one
Cyber.
point six.
it's 1.6, which you know, is pretty freaking cheap. I mean, it just came out, but the thing I like
Yeah.
about the cyber brokers is kind of like Azuki's, but honestly, for me, even more. So I guess the downside compared to Azuki's is probably a better PFP because it's more zoomed in on like a little bit more simplified traits,
Mm-hmm.
and the cyber brokers are a little bit busy, and it's a more of a full body. So like to make a PFP, you know, they would be wise to do a PFP maker. Like, was it
Mhm.
Eden Horde who did that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
like Eden Horde did, because they're not perfect for PFPs, but if you just like enhance them a little bit, I mean, you can just screenshot it and zoom it in. That's what I did, but
Mhm.
it's not like it's that hard. But back to my initial point is the level of detail for a generative project. The level of detail and all the different like the art quality of all the different traits is kind of phenomenal. Like I don't actually know of a single project. Look at that one. That one's beautiful. What
Well,
is
I
that
thought
mask
it was,
called?
weren't they all hand drawn?
And it's all on chain, which is
Individual.
cool. And
Yeah.
I mean, oh, are you saying it wasn't generated? Like each one was hand drawn?
Yeah, I thought they went through. Like I thought that was part of the issue with why it took so long. I don't know. Maybe
No,
I'm just
my
talking out
understanding
of
was
my.
that they just had to hand check. They had to like personally check each
Oh, okay.
one for quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're each hand drawn. But they look like they're hand. I mean, the reason we're not so sure is because they look like they could have been. I mean, they really look good. And yeah, I mean, I think they do
Yeah,
have that
fair.
kind of same feel as Suzuki's, where all the floor ones like are high quality. Like you don't really think it's a crappy floor one. Like they all look good, and they're all
Mhm.
pretty unique. You know.
Yeah.
So it's
The
pretty
art looks
cool. I
great.
saw this. There's this program I saw somebody post tweeted out today, and you could take your cyber broker and you could take them apart. So let's say they have a mask,
Mhm.
you could slide it off. You could slide the T-shirt off, and so basically it
No way.
shows that you own each piece, right? It's really cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's all
Oh,
it's all the layers.
Yeah, the layers exactly.
Oh, the
Yeah,
SVG
if
like
you
on chain art.
exactly.
yeah, is
So
it
when
doing what
you
Avastar's doing?
Yep.
is that what
Avastars.
Avastars has that too? So if you
Yeah.
right click and save it, it'll save it as a SVG file, and I think that's how they were doing it.
Ah, yeah. The downside is if you try to right click save it to your phone, it doesn't work. You have to screenshot it, which again isn't that hard. But
So you know what
it's
scares
cool.
me a bit about this? It kind of reminds me of Avastars. There's something that like I don't know. You guys get the same vibe, and it terrifies me.
I
Like
don't
some
get the
shit.
same vibe at all. No,
Yeah, I
dude.
don't
Oh.
either. Yeah, because
No.
there wasn't all the scrolling to find the right one.
No, Avastars has all the mad respect for me for being so early and
For sure.
really innovative, but like it just didn't quite work, right? Like the art is just isn't quite there. And ironically, you know, Josie was supposed to be the artist for it, and she
Oh,
turned
wow.
it down.
Interesting.
She had already committed, and then she said this in a podcast. That's how I know, but she had committed to it, and then I don't know what happened, personal issues or just it was overtime. Like she didn't have enough time. She realized how much work it would be, and then she told Jimmy that she couldn't do it. And so it's kind of funny that we're talking about that now, but obviously that was influential in her decision to make this project. Like she definitely wanted it to be similar and that it was on chain. But I mean, this is sort of like a 2022 version of Avastars, which was really created in 2018, I think, maybe 2019, but I think it was created in 2018 and launched 2019.
Mhm.
The floor for Avastars is like 0.08. It's just like terrifying.
Yeah, there's 25,000 of them, and
Yeah.
did
Yeah,
the
it's mint
breeding
price.
ever happen, or I don't even know.
How
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
hell is
there's
that?
the replicants.
yeah.
I think. Yeah, there's still like an Avastar team. They're still building, but it's yeah, it's tricky. It's just hard to like revive something.
Yeah.
I was looking at them.
There's
I mean,
still
it
a
brings
big.
back fond memories, but you know,
There's
I
still a
don't know.
big Avastar. There is still a big Avastar community. Like the Token Smart Discord's huge, and
Yeah.
they are working on this like RPG elements to it. I think where you can write lore and these sorts of things. So they're still experimenting with stuff. But
I hope
agree,
they do well.
it's tough.
Yeah, they have
My
a-
son,
honestly, I got.
My son has an Avastar framed in his room that Jimmy gave me for him on his birthday. That's pretty cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy's been really good about. He will basically, if you ask him for an Avastar, he'll give you one.
Wow.
He like definitely always supports that.
I was pretty shameless. I think I was like, I can't remember what Discord we were in, and he was probably punks. He was chatting about something, and I said, Jimmy, my son loves Avastars. He says he wants one for his birthday.
Love it.
Well, all right, guys, I think we're gonna wrap up. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we head out?
Just like
I'm good.
even if we're gonna go through a bear market, just like grind on through it, man. There's no point of being depressed or whatever. Just like make it through this, and if you do, you'll most likely probably be rewarded in the end.
Yeah, like all of us grinded through when no one like there's bear market and then there's a world where people don't even believe this is a real thing. So
Mhm.
you know, like at least people believe it's a real thing now. So you should have that comfort.
Wow, that's some bear market talk right there.
Come on, like you know, there was a time when this stuff was like you should know, right? Like people were buying punks for less than $1,000.
$79, dude. So my
Yeah, there you go.
my closing thoughts are: if there's a nuclear war, we get instantly vaporized. So whatever.
Yeah.
And if there's not a nuclear war, but a bear market, flight to quality, keep doing what you love, buy what you love, have a thesis, and you'll come out on top eventually. It might just take longer than you had hoped last month, but it's all good.
Yeah, just remember bear market ETH crashes too, right? So you know, it's not like you were by not buying JPEGs, you're somehow
Right.
saving yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't swing trading is impossible, so don't even try it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good night,
For sure.
guys. Good to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
Night, boys.
Take care. Bye.
Later.
Bye.